Aloha, it's CreativeNameToStandOut again with another battle report. This time I'm bringing you a 2,500 point game between my Chaos Legion's army, the Pyre Legion, and an opponent's Ogre Kingdom's army. This will be the first game with my new terrain I picked up from Tabletop World. It's going to look great when I get them painted. Haven't got a chance to paint them yet, so many other things on my plate. But I picked up a cottage, there's blacksmith house, and also a windmill. It's looking great, and I just looked on their website just now, and they have a terrific looking stone bridge. This is just my go-to tabletop terrain company, so I can't wait to pick up those products. But enough of that. I really encourage you guys to check it out. I am not getting paid to say this, but just to let you know, it's great. Genuinely great. So here we go into deployment, starting on the Ogre Kingdom side. Starting on his left flank, we have a big cat, the 10 Noblars, and then a group of Mournfang cavalry. Moving into the center, we have his 10 Lead Belchers, another group of Noblars, a huge block of regular Ogre Bulls with 3 of his characters. It's the Tyrant, the BSB, and the Slaughtermaster. And then we have 6 of the Iron Guts with the Firebelly in there. And then finally on the far right flank, we have the last cat. Here's an overview of the board before we go to see what's what in my deployment. Starting on the left flank, his right, we see that I have 4 Dragon Ogres with great weapons. Then both of my 12 strong units of warriors. And there is also the Bloodthirster. Then moving on to kind of like my right, more center right, whatever, we have my Screamers. Then my new block of troops that are going to be the kind of the centerpiece of my army. They'll also function as an anvil. They're the 19 warriors of Tzeentch with shields and hand weapons. At the time of this photo, as you can see, they're not done, but here's a photo showing that they're completed now. So in the next couple of battle reports, you might see them, finished. I have to do one more, maybe 7, depending on if I like the Dragon Ogre filling in as a unit filler. And then finally, moving on to the far right, we have my Flamers. I win the roll-off, and so the Pyre Legion strikes out first. So over here on the right, I advance very aggressively. All these units are very offensive. And then we move over to the left, and we see that my other block moves up, but a little bit more conservatively. So the plan here is I'm going to attack in kind of a pincer move. I'm coming from extreme angles. If he advances forward at all, he's going to expose his flank. Of course, he probably doesn't want to just strike forward, so he might go hard to the right or hard to the left. If he goes hard to the left, he's going to meet a block that won't be so easy to break through, and he's going to expose his flank to a bunch of offensive units. If he moves to the right very hard, he could probably break through those units, but if he doesn't, he's going to have a tough time when that big block of warriors hits one of his units in the flank. So he's hopefully in a tough position. All I need to do is distract those Mournfang with my skirmishers and kill off some of his chaff. So that's the plan, and we'll see how it goes. So with my opponent trying to decide between these 3 options, he actually elects to do option 4, which is just stand back and outshoot me. So not much I can do about that. Pretty good move on my opponent's part, so here he goes. We're going to jump in the magic phase. He's going to try to get off some spells. I'm going to stop it except for a Flamestorm, in which he rolls so high I just don't bother dispelling it. And he kills off 3 of my warriors. So we go into the shooting phase next. He takes aim at my level 1 caster, who I've just sloppily left out there in the open, and those Lead Belchers mow him down. So as we go into turn 2, I adjust my plans. I try to render his advantage useless by getting all my units behind some sort of terrain to make his shooting less effective. I then fly my Screamers over some Noblars that did advance and do a couple wounds there, enough to cause him to take a panic check, and he panics and runs over here, which is really good for me because now his Mournfang cavalry can't declare a long charge against my block that I've kind of tilted and not so much moved up. Just kind of keeping them there while the right side moves up more aggressively, and that's what happens over there. I move up a little bit more aggressively over here and control these woods so that they're not a disadvantage to me. So That's the plan, and we jump into magic. So in magic, I strengthen my right side by bubbling up on Glittering Robe again, and I try to get off Plague of Rust, but my opponent, he's played against me plenty of times that he knows that I love this spell, and he ends up stopping it. So we go into the shooting phase next, and I realize that my skirmishes are not a good matchup against these Mournfang Cavalry. I shoot to no damage, so don't know exactly how this skirmishers versus Mournfang is going to work out. Again, as we go into turn 3 of the Ogre's turn, there is no charges, not much of an advance either. I think his Saber Tusks move up a bit, but his one Saber Tusk runs off the board, his other Gnoblars run into the woods. We get an overview of the board, and then we jump into magic. We go into Ogre's second magic phase, and I'm going to say this about Ogre magic. It is a little bit one-dimensional in the early part of the game. It doesn't have a lot of threats long range. You can easily stop the stuff, and then its boosts are kind of negligible until you get into combat. So early on, I don't think Ogre magic is very strong. Later turns, though, I think it really, gets into the game what it's supposed to do. So like I said, stop everything but one spell. It doesn't matter. We go in the shooting phase. The Belchers, of course, open fire on the big unit, but of course I moved in between the woods, and the damage is minimal. So here we go into Legions of Chaos turn 3, and here on the left flank I have my Flamers. I'm going to keep them where they are, take some shots at the Mournfang, and I'm going to fly the Screamers over them. And surprisingly enough, my opponent rolls pretty poorly, and I get 2 wounds in, so that's some pretty good fortune. Now here in the center, some important things going on here. I put the Bloodthirster in a great position. He's in a great, easy charge next turn to make it in the Leadbelchers. The Leadbelchers are still out of long range. Of course, they can move up, I guess, so it's not that big of a deal. But I'm going to be able to charge these Leadbelchers next turn, really tear them up, hopefully break them, and then I'll be in the flank of the rest of his army. And if the army, or I'll probably overrun still, but either way, I'm going to be in the backfield to his flank, and if he tries to turn to respawn with a big block, that's just going to give my right flank free reign to advance forward without much threat. I can take on 6 Iron Guts, I think. So that's how the table is developing, and here on the right flank, you can see I am moving up a little bit more aggressively. Got all my troops ready to see what he's going to do, and we're going to jump into magic. I want to go ahead and try and get my opponent to use his spell scroll. Unfortunately, I don't really got any spells that's going to make him do that. I do throw up an Enchanted Blades for the purpose, but he's not going to fall for that. He stops Plague of Rust, trying to get that off on the Mournfang throughout the game, but he's stopping it. And then finally, Bubble Glittering Robes. It's going to hit my Bloodthirster, so that's going to help him against any shooting that I might direct his way. We go into my shooting phase. The Flamers, like I said, stayed where they are. Took some shots at the Mournfang. Surprisingly enough, do enough wounds to kill off one Mournfang, and then he fails his toughness test, and I'm able to knock down a Mournfang to 1 wound. So that was very successful. Can't complain about that, and that ends my turn. We go into Ogre's turn 3 and watch my friend declare his charge with such authority. This looks very epic right there. Anyways, he declares this charge. Of course, the Mournfang are going to charge in the Flamers. There's nothing I can do really here. I'm going to stand and shoot. And he's also, surprisingly enough, didn't see this coming, going to charge the Bloodthirster with the Leadbelchers. My opponent's always doing this, declaring charges with shooting units into other units, and I should learn by now that this is a thing he does, and it works for him. So I need to be aware of this. As you can see in this picture, the stand and shoot was spectacular. I was able to do the last wound to that Mournfang, then a couple more to the second Mournfang. He then failed his toughness test once again, and I was able to kill off the third Mournfang, and this Mournfang I think is only sitting on 1 wound. So pretty fantastic, to say the least. As far as the other charge goes, my opponent makes it. It was just a good charge. Didn't see it coming. It's going to be an Ogre charge even. Luckily enough, I at least have the Glittering Robe up on him, but man, didn't see that coming. Pretty good option there. So that's how the charges went. Here's an overview of the board, and we'll go into the magic phase. And we go into Ogre's turn 3, and this is what I'm talking about when magic comes into its own for Ogres. It's a big magic phase. He's forced me to have to stop both his combat buffs, because he does have something in combat against something I care about, and his ranged attacks. I am successful in stopping the first round of them, but the Flame Storm and the Fireball do get through, and it ends up killing off 4 of my warriors. It could have definitely been way worse. The Flamestorm did scatter off a whole lot, but it did do its damage. And this is, like I said, they're one-dimensional in the beginning, but once it gets there into the mid-turns, I think it really starts rolling for them. In combat, it's a little brutal here. It could have been way worse, but the Strength 5 D3 impact hits helped the Ogre player do about 3 wounds, it looks like. I'm really lucky that I didn't outright die. I do have to give credit to that glittering robe that I have off right now, but man, didn't see it coming and almost lost a Bloodthirster to some rampaging Iron Guts. On the other side, of course, even though I did a whole lot of wounds to these Mournfang, one's enough, kills them off, and he turns to face towards the center of my army. So here's an overlook of the board as we go into turn 3. And I'm a little concerned there with the Bloodthirster. He's tough, you know, I'll give him that, but, you know, a couple 6s that go through, and he doesn't really have much of an armor save and ward save. So I'm not entirely confident he can, you know, stand up against all those lead belchers. If there was less, I would probably be a little bit less concerned. So I do declare a charge with the halberds here on the right flank going towards him. And they do make it, as you can see in this picture. You can also see that I do have a block of troops near him, but I didn't foresee this charge in the first place, so I did not care that I had positioned them so close together. So bad on me for not foreseeing this. Other than that, I do bring the BSB out to try to scare away this cat, and also just to put him in a good position so if the Mournfang makes it around the house, I have something to react to him. And then we see that I also bring my Screamers here up on the left flank, trying to chase after the Mournfang Cavalry. He only has 1 wound left on him, so I think it's doable to kill him with these Screamers. And then on the right side, I also back up with my 2 blocks of troops, because again, not confident that I can win the right side now that I've dedicated another block of troops to the center. And so we jump into the magic phase, and basically the Dispel Scroll just kills it for me. I tried to get him to use the Dispel Scroll early, but I didn't have any real imminent threats, so he got to save it, and it kills it now. So, oh well. We go into combat because there's no shooting, and of course I just destroy the lead belchers. I'm seeing it now. We did this overrun wrong. I don't know. We're usually really good about catching these things, but this time we did it wrong. I should have overran towards the left. I didn't. I don't know why we didn't catch that. Sorry, but I don't think it would have impacted the game much. And that brings us into turn 4 for the Ogres. And it's a turn of big movements compared to what he's been doing the rest of the game. He turns the Iron Guts to face the oncoming Bloodthirster that's coming up the center. He decides to abandon the right flank and start advancing his large block of troops towards my BSB and his unit of troops. His Nobblers continue to flee. They get to right next to the Bloodthirster. That's interesting. And his Mournfang rounds the house. And that leads us into magic. Ogre Kingdom's turn 4 magic was kind of unfortunate. He went from having a bad magic phase to having a counterproductive magic phase. He went for a fireball, it didn't work out. He got Bone Crusher off irresistibly. He targeted my BSB. That could have been really bad. Unfortunately, didn't do any wounds to him, and the Irresistible Force killed 2 of his ogres. So, didn't really help him out too much, but I mean, it is just 2 ogres out of that giant block. But I guess you don't want to lose them anyways. So we get an overview of the board, and we go into turn 5. So now I can put my original plan into practice, and I can get real aggressive on the right side and then put them in a really tough position. But first I need to declare charges, and the first thing I do is charge the BSB into the cat. The cat runs away, and I don't catch him. That's okay, it doesn't really matter. Then we go over to the right side, and I do move everything up very aggressively. I even hop the Bloodthirster over to the right side of the flank of this unit. And now, oh, this is such a bad idea. I did not think about it at all, and I just failed at my own plan. So I should have kind of kept him on the left side of this unit, maybe about 5 or 6 inches away, and that would have put him in a tough pickle right there, because then he would either have to give my Khorne Berserker a flank or a rear by reacting to the troops that are coming up on his right, or he could face the Khorne Berserker, to which I would just avoid the unit. I'd fly over him, and I could just isolate that Iron Gut unit in the back. But I didn't, and instead I put all the pressure on the right side, and even worse, I put the Bloodthirster here, as you can see, in a pretty easy charge range for those Iron Guts. So yeah, I just failed this. But it's not over. It's just not exactly the best move I could have done. Either way, I continue on to the movement phase. I hop these screamers over the Mornfang, and I just love the screamers. They have such a neat rule. It's so helpful, very flexible. I love them. So that's going to bring us in the magic phase. Which we get to see my opponent quash my meager attempt to help out the Bloodthirsters. So that brings us into my opponent's next turn. He of course declares that charge with the Iron Guts into my Bloodthirster. Not much I can do about that, can't flee, hits me in the flank, turns his other unit around to face the threats on the right, and I have no pressure on the left, and we jump into his magic phase, which is pretty effective. He gets 2 spells off, I can't do anything about them. Luckily the Firestorm drifts, and the regen's just horrible. There's nothing I can do about that. So we go into combat, that regen comes into play. I kill off, I think, an Ogre, and I put a wound on his champion, but yeah, I'm pretty sure that Ogre was already wounded. Actually, I have no idea. I think maybe I did better despite the fact that he had the regen. So that's what the board looks like after his turn, here on the left, and then here on the right, and that's going to bring us to turn 6. So I'm not thrilled about what's happening. I'm also not excited about attacking a unit with regen, but it's better to charge than to get charged, so that's what I'm going to go ahead and do. And, you know, if I can just, I feel like I can beat them despite the regen, and as long as I have 5 guys left in my front rank of the Chaos troops, they won't be steadfast, I'll probably be able to break them. So that's the plan, and I go ahead and charge. So we go into the magic phase. I get my own irresistible force spell off, and that's Enchanted Blades, going on the Chaos Warriors in combat with those Iron Guts. We go to that combat. I get in a challenge with champion versus his champion. We have to remember that his champion's already taking 1 wound from the Bloodthirster. We get in the challenge, and sure enough, because of that 1 wound and his poor rolling for the regen saves, my champion wins, and the gods decide to bless him with +1 attack. So now I have a champion with 6 attacks. That's pretty awesome. We go into the rest of the combat, and I do very well. I get him down to just the Fire Belly and 1 Ogre, and he's on a 3, and unfortunately he sticks. That's so bad. I could have really had, I was willing to, trade a unit for a unit, get these 2 units in there, kill off his Iron Guts in that character, then lose whatever unit I was going to lose to those that giant block of ogres charging him. But unfortunately, that's not what's going to happen. I need to try to kill off these Iron Guts before he destroys me. So I reform like so. The champion's there on the edge. I couldn't get it to where he couldn't charge me at all, so I just put the champion on the edge, so when that big block comes in, he'll slam in there, I'll offer a challenge, and I'll pretty much negate all of his attacks. So here we go into Ogre's turn 6. We end the game with our 4th consecutive irresistible cast spell, which is going to be Troll Guts, unfortunately, so it's going to make it so difficult to win this battle. So we go into combat. Unfortunately, I have to issue a challenge, which is going to give him overkill. I will on the champion with all my attacks. That wound's not from me, it's from the irresistible cast Troll Guts. I do nothing, and the Tyrant backhands me. So it's really bad. We go into the rest of the combat. It's actually kind of a fluff fest. He makes a bunch of regen saves. This time it's coming through for him, unlike the other 2 turns. He doesn't have a lot of opportunities to do a lot of damage back to me. But with the overkill, he kills, I think, 2 of my Chaos Warriors. And then just the combat res. 3 ranks, the charge, BSB, a champion, or the banner. I'm on double 1s. I break. And my Dragon Warriors get ran down by those 2 last Iron Guts. Thankfully, my warriors get away from combat, so he's not going to get the points there. He does get the banner, of course, and that's where we end the game. And that's pretty much how the game ends. We do have a cat that runs away, but in the end, the Ogres win. Pretty big there, 300 points. I guess that's not that big, but it's a solid enough win. Came down to that last battle, which is always a great game when you don't know who's going to win to the very last combat. And so, unfortunately, I wasn't on the winning side. So losing those Dragon Ogres was tough. So wish I could have broke that Iron Gut unit, but I really placed that Bloodthirster in a bad position. My opponent made sure not to commit his Iron Guts to be facing too extremely, so that means he could have seen my Bloodthirster no matter where I put it, but I probably should have just kept it on the left flank. So yeah. Oh well. Really hope you enjoyed this battle report. I do appreciate everybody's likes, comments, and subscriptions, and I'll have another one out next week.